So today's video, I already know, is going to cause a ton of controversy, but nevertheless, I'm doing it because they seem to be getting views. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, my Premier League predictions for 2019-2020. I'm filming this on a Friday, but by the time I upload it, Premier League's probably already going to be started. But anyway, I just want you guys to know, this is my opinion, okay? So if I say your team's going to relegate or something like that, then just don't be cut, okay? But then again, I just want to say how hard it was to make this list. Like, the Premier League this season, especially the bottom half of the table, I think is going to be one of the hardest things to predict. So I will do a video at the end of the Premier League season of me reacting to my reactions and how they actually compared to the actual Premier League season. But nevertheless, let's get into the ratings, starting off with 20th place and the relegation sides. So of course, every single Premier League, there has to be a team that gets the wooden spoon. And for me, I think it's going to be Sheffield. Now, a lot of people are saying this as well, and they're just saying it simply because they spent the least amount of money of the three promoting sides. And honestly, I can agree with that. All the players they've bought in, I have the transfers up right now. Oliver McBurney, Musette, who was one of their only Premier League players who actually came into their squad. So most of the players that they've actually transferred in, one, aren't really well recognised, and two, they're from the Championship. So I feel like if they want to stay in the Premier League, they've already got to bring like some Premier League talent, players who are actually experienced in the Premier League, into the team, and I don't think they really have that. I do think some players will play well. Billy Sharp, of course, he did have a really good season in the Championship. And I don't know, Sheffield, they may surprise me. A lot of teams, a lot of the thing that I obviously don't know about Sheffield is because I don't support them. I live in Australia as well. I don't have much time to watch any football. Is that they may have a lot of team spirit. They may work really well as a team, despite a lot of their players not being recognised. Either way, though, I've got them coming 20th place. And I guess we'll have to see at the end of the season how they go. In at 19th place, just above Sheffield, I have Brighton and Hove Albion. Now, I think it's fair to say, Brighton have been pretty active in the transfer window. They've just brought in Aaron Moy on a loan from Huddersfield Town, the Australian himself. They've also brought in Leandro Trossard, Neil Maupay, if I pronounce that wrong, I apologise, and Adam Webster from Bristol City. So they've been pretty active in the transfer window. Except, thing is, they didn't win a game. They didn't get a result. Well, I think they drew some games, but they didn't win a game as of early March last Premier League season. So they went about like 10 games without getting an actual win. So could that go into the new Premier League season? I don't know, but I think it's time for Brighton to go back down. They've been in the Premier League for a couple of seasons now, and I just don't think they can pull something out of the bag to actually stay up again. They've got a lot of competition this season, and a lot of other teams have done well in the transfer window, so I think Brighton will come 19th. Okay, the final team I think will relegate this season. This was one of the hardest decisions I had to make. I was like contemplating between 4 or 5 teams who I thought was going to relegate, but I came up with the decision for Norwich. Now, Norwich, of course, they had a phenomenal last season under their young manager. I don't know his name, to be honest, guys. I really don't know. But yeah, they've had an okay transfer window. They haven't spent the most, but they've brought in Ralph Farman, a very experienced player from Schalke. They've brought in a fellow hammer, Sam Byram, who I know is definitely a good right back. They also have a lot of young players in their team. They have a guy called Aarons, I believe, at right back, who had a phenomenal last season. Timu Puki, who was a transfer that Norwich got last season. Nobody knew about him, and then he went and got the golden boot in his first season. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes this season. Personally, I really don't want Norwich to relegate because I absolutely love them as a team. But will they relegate? I don't know. I'll explain later why I have them. I think they'll relegate compared to the teams that I'm going to put above them. But nevertheless, Norwich, they've done okay in the transfer window, but I do think Aston Villa have been a lot more active. Of course, they may be different because Fulham spent a lot last season, and look where they came. But then again, I'll explain why I have them, that I think they'll relegate. But I do think it'll be close. I do think the 18th spot this season, it'll be very tight, back and forth. And at the end of the day, I just don't think Norwich have the team strength for it. I just realised the lighting's a little bit weird in this video. I apologise, guys. There's nothing I can do about it. I just think my lights are like too powerful or something. Nevertheless, who do I think is going to be coming 17th? Who do I think is just going to be avoiding relegation? And I actually was going to have this team as relegating if they got rid of this player. But since this player has stayed, as of transfer deadline day finishing, I think they'll just avoid relegation. And that is Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace, of course, heavily reliant on Wilfried Zaha. Milijevic as well, I believe, is a very good player. But they actually have had a decent transfer deadline day, or just a decent window. Nothing amazing, but they have brought in James McArthur from Everton, Jordan Ayew, a guy called Victor Camarasa. I've never heard of him, but they've also brought in Gary Cahill from Chelsea. So, although he's a little bit older now, Gary Cahill, he's very experienced in the Premier League and he could be a solid defender. But with Wilfried Zaha in the team, I do think Crystal Palace are safe and I do think they'll just avoid relegation. In at 16th spot, I have Burnley, another team, of course, we all love. I mean, I love the man himself, Vizé, a diehard Burnley fan. And I know he's not going to be too happy if he somehow watches. I don't think he'll watch it. But nevertheless, I have Burnley at 16th spot. They didn't really have the best of seasons last year either, but I do think they are comfortable enough and good enough to avoid relegation, especially under Sean Dyche. He seems to know what he's doing. He seems to care a lot about the club. They haven't had the worst or best of transfer winners. They have brought in Jay Rodriguez, though, from West Brom. I'm having a look right now. Danny Drinkwater, I believe, on a loan. Am I correct in saying that? I don't know. I've got some transfer website up right now, guys. I haven't been able to keep up with all the transfers, but I do think Burnley are good enough to stay up in the Premier League. Of course, they have lost one of their more experienced keepers, Tom Heaton, but they do have enough backup. They do have Nick Pope and Joe Hart. I don't think Joe Hart will play too much, but I do think Nick Pope is good enough behind the sticks. And I do think that Burnley do have a strong enough team to stay up in the Premier League. Although I do think it will be close, and sometimes it may look like they're going to relegate. I think Sean Dyche will push through though. Southampton, the team is unpredictable. I think a few seasons ago, they were actually competing for Europa League. I think they actually may have made Europa League. And now, I guess you could say they're a team fighting to stay up in the Premier League. But I do think they have had a good transfer window. They have brought in Danny Ings from Liverpool, who I think is a phenomenal signing, and I do think he will prosper at Southampton. I do think he will play a pivotal role in getting some goals from them this season. Shea Adams as well, the man from Birmingham, young striker. I think him and Ings pairing up together as a partnership will be phenomenal. And I do think it will be enough to keep Southampton in a safe spot. I hate their kit. I'm sorry. I hate their home kit, guys. But in terms of how they actually play this season, I guess we'll have to see. But their transfer window has been okay. And Southampton, under their management, I think they are good enough to stay up in the Premier League. But then again, one of those teams who I think will flutter around the relegation zone, but pull through once again. In at 14th place, I have the last promoting side in Aston Villa. Now, although they didn't get automatic promotion, I can comfortably say that I think they will stay up in the Premier League. I do think that Aston Villa do belong in the Premier League. And I guess that kind of backs up my statement with what they've done in the transfer window. They've brought in Wesley from Club Brugge. He looks like an absolute threat, like 6'3", huge striker. They've brought him in for 25 mil. And also the addition of Tyrone Mings from Bournemouth. I know Tyrone Mings is a good left back and plays centre back as well. And a lot of other players have brought in Matt Targett, Douglas Lewis, Trezeguet from a Turkish team. But I think he got a team of the season. I don't know. That's just me going off FIFA. But they have brought in a lot of new fresh faces in amongst the team. It may take them, I'd say, 5-6 games to actually gel together. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did lose their first few games. But I think when Aston Villa do gel together and in the later stages of the Premier League, I think they will pull through and I think they'll be able to get a decent position to at least keep them up in the Premier League one more season. I do think Aston Villa, as I said before, belong in the Premier League, and I think it'll be interesting to see how they go this season, because they have spent a lot of money. In at 13th place, I have Newcastle. May surprise a few people. I know a lot of people don't think Newcastle are a top side, especially under management of Steve Bruce now, causing a lot of controversy, except I do think they have done well in the transfer window. Although losing Jose Perez was a bad thing, really good striker, they did get a decent price off him, and with the addition of Joel Linton for 44 million and Alan St. Maximum, I don't know how you say that name, but he's come from Nice, and he looks like a very good young winger as well. So they've brought in a nice few faces. They've also brought in Andy Carroll from West Ham, which I know is sad to see, but at the same time, good to see him go back to Newcastle, and Jetro Willems from Frankfurt. So a lot of good signings for Newcastle, and I think they'll be able to back that up this season. Although I think Steve Bruce will cop a lot of shit at the start of the season, I think he'll be able to pull through. I think he'll be able to get the Geordies a decent finish in the Premier League. Even if he gets sacked, I don't know if he'll get sacked, but he's just joined the club. So we'll have to wait and see. Who knows? He might do well, but I think 13th place is where Newcastle belong. I'm not going to lie, I don't know much about Bournemouth, but I do think they will have a decent mid-table finish again this season. yeah, they've got rid of Tyron Mings. They've got rid of Musette or whatever. It sounds like chocolate mousse from to Sheffield. But they have brought in some decent signings. They have spent quite a bit. I don't know who half these guys are. Dan Juma, Billing, Kelly, Stacey, and Harry Wilson from Liverpool. So they've done a decent job in the transfer window, I think. And I can comfortably say that I think Bournemouth will be able to stay in the Premier League. Although I don't think that a lot of their players are Premier League status. I think they can always pull through, and I think their manager, I don't even know who their manager is. In fact, let me look up right now. Who is Bournemouth's manager? Who is Bournemouth's manager? Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe. I know that guy. Yeah. Eddie Howe. I think he'll be able to pull through and get Bournemouth a decent finish. If I didn't let you guys know before, I'm not English, I'm Australian, so I have hardly any time to watch the Premier League, and if I do want to watch the Premier League, I've got to stay up till the early hours of the morning, and I'm going to spend $15 a month. So, it's not easy being Australian, but I try, and I'm going to try and watch as many Premier League games this season, so I can actually understand how it works, because right now, a lot of my rankings are relying on how strong I think the team is, although, I don't know. In 11th, I have Watford. I do think they'll finish decent in the table, again this season. They had a phenomenal start the last season. They looked like they were going to finish in the top 4 at one stage. Except they did plummet a little bit. But Watford, I have faith in their side. I honestly do. They've brought in a lot of young faces. And to be honest, I like that. Ismail Lassar from Stade Rennais for 30 million. Craig Dawson, the centre-back, of course, from West Brom. I think he'll do decent for the club. And a man called João Pedro. They've also brought in a few other guys. Danny Welbeck on a free. So there you go, guys. Watford have had a decent transfer window, and I think their manager, Javi Garcia, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but they seem to be doing well under him, and I do think Watford are a good young emerging side, and I do think they'll be able to finish mid-table again this season. This one may cause a little bit of controversy. At 10th place, I have Leicester City. Now, it's a tough one because Brendan Rodgers, don't get me wrong, he's a phenomenal manager, and this one could go either way. I would not be surprised if Leicester finished 6th or 7th this season. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised if they finished 12th, 13th. So I think I'm going to find this equilibrium and put them at 10th place. Of course, they have got rid of Harry Maguire to Man United. They got a huge fee of 87 million for that. But they have brought in a lot of fresh faces. As I said before, Newcastle lost Ayuzi Perez to Leicester City. They've also brought in Yuri Tielemans, 22-year-old midfielder, and a lot of people saying he's the next big thing. So they've spent 45 million on him, and also a guy called Dennis Prayet from Sampdoria. I've heard of him, a Belgian cam. So they've spent a lot of money in the transfer window. Brendan Rodgers, phenomenal manager in my opinion, but I still think they won't be able to finish 7th or 8th. Although I do think that 7th to 10th kind of position is going to be tossing and turning for who's going to get the Europa League qualifier spot. In at 9th place, just above Leicester, I have West Ham, my team, come on you wind. That's right, I'm not biased, guys. I genuinely think West Ham will come 9th this season, and I do think that that's where they belong. Of course, we have got rid of a lot of players this season. We got rid of Arnautovic, Nasri, even I need help looking at this, guys. Edemilson Fernandez, Lucas Perez, Reece Oxford, Sam Byram, Samir Nasri, Andy Carroll, Adrian. We got rid of so many guys. But I do think, and I can credit Pellegrini for this, we have brought in the right amount of players and in the right positions as well. Sebastian Haller, as a striker from Frankfurt, phenomenal player. He's really strong and he's phenomenal with the ball at his feet as well. He's all I ask in a striker for West Ham, and in pre-season he's looked absolutely phenomenal as well. So I do think he's perfect. Pablo Fornals, of course, young player from Villarreal. We have bought him for 28 million. He looks really good as well. Kind of similar Lanzini kind of player, low center of gravity. Looks really good on the ball, can pass, can dribble. And of course, we've been really good with our young signings. We've brought in Albion Ajeti, another striker from FC Basel. He looks to be really good, 22 years old. And a young Portuguese centre-back called Gonzalo Cardoso, who I've never heard of in my entire life. And then we went and brought David Martin from Millwall. How does that make sense? We bought him from a rival club. David Martin. I don't know why he's in the team, but David Martin, fair play to you. Now, but to be honest, I do think that's where West Ham belong, 9th this season. We're one of those teams that always have the ability to get 7th place. but we never seem to do it, and I do think that'll happen again this year. We just lose too many games that we shouldn't lose, and although I hope Pellegrini doesn't do that this season, I hope the players don't do that, I do think it would inevitably happen. But 9th position, top 10 for West Ham, I'd be happy. In 8th place, again, this might cause a lot of controversy, I have Wolverhampton Wanderers. And yeah, they did finish 7th last season. They had a phenomenal transfer window, and I think that they have had a phenomenal transfer window again. They've signed Raul Jimenez on a full. They've also got Patrick Cutrone, who I think is a phenomenal striker from AC Milan. Looks to be really good, really young as well, 21 years old. Wolverhampton Wanderers, again, a lot of foreign players, a lot of young players as well. But I do think they'll be able to gel together, get a decent result this season. But then again, I do think 7th place will be took by another team. Again, it can be argued they could be stuck in that issue of being in Europa League, trying to fit the right amount of players, trying to do well in Europa League as well in the Premier League. Except I do think they'll pull something out of the bag and still get a very solid Premier League result with 8th place. Then again, I could be wrong. Wolverhampton Wanderers, in my opinion right now, have a team to be able to finish in the top 6. Or at least definitely compete for the top 6. So we'll have to wait and see. So 7th place, who's it going to be? I think you guys have probably guessed it by now. It is going to be Everton. Why do I think Everton are going to finish 7th? In my opinion, they have had a brilliant transfer window. Of course, they've seen the departure of Idrissa Gana Gueye. That's a huge loss for Everton, except I do think they've backed it up with this guy by the name of Gabamin from Mainz in Germany. Now, from what I've heard, he's going to be a really solid CDM. But not only that, guys, not only that, they've brought in Alex Iwobi on transfer deadline day from Arsenal. And the big one for me is, of course, Moise Kean from Juventus. He's meant to be the next big thing. And I do think he'll kind of be that Lukaku replacement that Everton fans have been missing for the last few seasons. Of course, only 19 years old. He's got a lot to carry on his shoulders. But I do think if he gets game time by the manager this season, Moise Kean will be really good for Everton fans. Of course, I can't forget, they've also brought in Sidibe on a loan from Monaco. And they've also brought in Fabian Delph from Man City. So they have a huge range of players who they've signed this season. And I'm sure they'll be able to have enough to pull something out of the bag and finish in top 7, because in my opinion right now, Everton's squad, even top 6 worthy. They have signed in so many top players and they've spent a lot of money as well, but I do think they'll do very well this season. Let the controversy begin. Now this warrants me putting on some glasses, because Chelsea fans, they're going to argue with me probably, but it makes sense, doesn't it? They've seen Eden Hazard go, they've got the transfer ban, they have got Pulisic. But the one thing that I'm really interested to see this season is, how is Frankie Lampard going to do managing at the club? Of course, an ex-Chelsea legend. Will he be able to pull something through and get Chelsea a top 4 finish? I don't think so. I just think with the team that they have right now. Look, Chelsea, okay, they do have a good team. Tammy Abraham up front. He had a phenomenal season for Aston Villa. Is he going to be able to back it up at Chelsea as like their main striker? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Although they do have some good players. They have Azpilicueta, Marcos Alonso. They've held on to those likes of players. N'Golo Kante still. I just don't think they'll be able to compete in the top 4 this season. Although, Frankie Lampard, prove me wrong, buddy. I'd love to see Chelsea do well this season. I've been to 2 of their games in real life, actually. And with Hazard, of course. Hazard just pulls the strings for Chelsea. I've seen him play, and as soon as he comes on the field, the game changes. It just instantly changes. And to see him go, of course, is sad for Chelsea fans. But I don't know. I just don't think they're good enough to finish in the top 4. So it's a new day and the lighting is much better. So hopefully it isn't annoying for the rest of the video. Either way, I'm at 5th place, guys. And this is where it starts to get really controversial. So 4th and 5th place is where I genuinely have no idea which team's going to come 4th, which team's going to come 5th. So it's pretty much 50-50. I think I'm slightly more confident that one team will come 5th. Then one team will come 4th, and I'll kind of justify that. So in 5th place, I have Arsenal. Arsenal fans, instantly going to dislike this video, instantly going to hate me. They're going to go in the comment section right now. Let me explain, guys. Okay, Arsenal, they spent a lot of money in the transfer window. They brought in Nicolas Pepe from Lille, William Saliba from Saint Etienne, Kieran Tierney, and David Luiz on transfer deadline day. They've also brought in Danny Ceballos on a loan, and the young Gabriel Martinelli. But they have got rid of Aaron Ramsey, which is sad to see him go. He'd been at the club for so long. I'm sure Arsenal fans are still mourning over that loss. Danny Welbeck's gone. Koscielny's gone. But I think overall, Arsenal, in terms of who they've brought in, they've done quite well. But have they brought in the right players? That's the thing. Okay, Arsenal, they are in need of better defenders, and to an extent they have done well. David Luiz, he's starting to get on now. He's 32 years old, and he's not the best Premier League centre-back anymore. I still think he'll be decent at Arsenal, but he doesn't have that much of a future in him. One or two more not bad seasons in him. Kieran Tierney and Saliba, phenomenal players. Well, I don't know too much about Saliba, to be honest, but I do know that Tierney is a phenomenal left-back, and I think he will blend really good into the Arsenal starting lineup. Saliba, though, I'm not 100% sure. He's 18 years old, and he's got a lot of it on his shoulders. And he's got big shoes to fill in the centre-back spot. I don't think he's going to get as much game time because he's only 18 years old. And I think that just in terms of who they needed at centre-back, I think that Arsenal's defence is going to be a little bit weaker than who I think is going to come fourth, which I will say in a second. Although I do think the integration of Nicolas Pepe is a phenomenal sign from Emre. They spent a lot of money on him, 80 million, which, look, is, for football nowadays, it's a lot of money, but it just seems to be normal. But 80 million, guys, on Pepe, I think he will be brilliant in the midfield, in the attack, and he'll do well for Arsenal this season. So I think Arsenal still will have a good season. I would not be surprised if they got top 3 even, because they do have a strong side, but I just think their defence is a little bit weaker than who will have it fourth. So who do I think will come fourth this season and secure a Champions League spot? I have Manchester United. Now, I know Manchester United's defence last season definitely wasn't the best, except they've brought in some good English talent in Harry Maguire, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Harry Maguire he's approaching his prime. He's 26 years old. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is only 21 years old. Daniel James from Swansea, who's going to be an interesting player. I'm interested to see how he plays. Apparently he's rapid. It'll be good to see him come off the bench. Although they have seen the departure of a few players, Romelu Lukaku, Ander Herrera, and Antonio Valencia, of course. He's starting to get on now, though. So I think Wan-Bissaka is a really good replacement for that. And I think their defence is going to be quite solid this season. They have Luke Shaw. I think Lindelof and Maguire at the back will be a little bit more solid than the two centre-backs that Arsenal will be running. Who will they be running at centre-back? Maybe David Luiz and Socrates? I'm not 100% sure. But I do think what's going to push Manchester United possibly that one spot ahead of Arsenal is just that improved defence. Although, I do think Arsenal's attack is much stronger than Manchester United, especially since the departure of Lukaku. Although he was inconsistent in the Premier League, when he got it right, he was really good. So 4th and 5th, I don't want you guys to get cut over this because it really could go either way in my opinion. So 3rd place, I'm pretty sure most of you guys would have been expecting this by now. I have Tottenham Hotspur. Now Tottenham Hotspur, in my opinion, did really well in the transfer window. They've only got rid of Kieran Trippier kind of as their main player. And they've brought in a lot of fresh faces, such as Tanguy Ndombele, really hard name to say. Anyway, I'm so excited to see how he links up with the likes of Moussa Sissoko in the midfield. That would be an insane partnership. Ryan Sessegnon and Giovanni Lo Celso on transfer deadline day. I think that's huge. I know Lo Celso's on a loan, but still, Ryan Sessegnon, huge English talent, and Lo Celso, another young talent as well, which they could buy potentially after the loan. I think they've done well in the transfer window, Tottenham, and of course, they still have the likes of Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, Lucas Moura, Eriksen, a very solid defence in Alderweireld Vertonghen and Lloris. And I think I'm confident in saying that they will come 3rd this season. I don't think they'll push for that title spot, but they're one of those teams that I feel like are almost guaranteed Champions League football every single season because they just seem to be holding on to their good players and they seem to be bringing in new faces every year. So good to see Spurs, although as a West Ham fan, I have to hate them. They are growing as a club every year, and they've proven that. They've held on to most of their good players. And they've brought in a lot of fresh faces as well. The final 2 spots. Now, of course, we knew it was either going to be City, it was either going to be Liverpool. This is, by far, the hardest Premier League I think it is to ever predict. Because Liverpool, of course, they missed out by 1 point last year, winning the Premier League. They went and won the Champions League. And their team is phenomenal. At the time we speak this, actually, they've played their first game in the Premier League. And they beat Norwich 4-1. Now, I know this doesn't necessarily count as a Premier League prediction if I'm saying it one day into the Premier League, but with the way how they played against Norwich, they scored 4 goals in 40 minutes. I know it's Norwich, they're a promoted side, but Liverpool are world class. But so are Manchester City. So who am I going to pick at second? Who am I going to pick at first? this, again, is a 50-50. But in second place, drum roll please, I have Liverpool. So that means I think that Manchester City will win the league. Now, of course, it's a hard one because Liverpool, they went and won the Champions League last year. And of course, they're going to try in the Champions League this year again. But are they going to put all their eggs in one basket and try and win the Premier? If they do that, I think Liverpool have the ability to win a Premier League. Except, they haven't brought in many fresh faces. And the thing that gets me with Manchester City is that their squad is so deep. I think Manchester City's second squad would be able to comfortably win a Premier League. Like, seriously, they've brought in new faces like Rodri. I'm going to get it up right now because I will forget off the top of my head. João Cancelo. I think João Cancelo is a phenomenal signing. I think what Manchester City can do now is play João Cancelo on the right and bring Kyle Walker in at centre-back, because I know he plays centre-back for England a lot of the time, and he can kind of replace what's his name, Vincent Kompany, as he's left. I think they've done really well in the transfer window, Manchester City. Angelino, they brought him back from PSV Eindhoven, and they've also brought in a lot of other young faces as well. So I think Manchester City have had a successful transfer window. Liverpool, on the other hand, have had a very interesting one. They've brought in Adrian from West Ham as a backup keeper for Simon Mignolet, and a lot of young guys who I really, to be honest, I have no idea who they are. And at the same time, I kind of admire Klopp because it tells me something that he has faith in his current team. But if you go and win a Champions League and you have hundreds of millions of pounds to spend, why don't you spend it? Why wouldn't you buy one world-class player to guarantee yourself a good performance? I don't know. And just not necessarily that, just guarantee backup players as well. Because I feel like right now, if one or two of Liverpool's main players get injured, especially Salah, Firmino or Mane, I think it could be downhill. Not completely, but I just don't think they'll be enough to win the Premier League. That's my opinion, guys. But on the other hand, if Manchester City lose one of their main players, for example, Fernandinho, Rodri's there, Gundogan's there, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, there's so many good players overall Manchester City. And Liverpool, yes, they do have a phenomenal side. And I do think in 3-4 years' time, Liverpool by far, if they hold on to their players, will be the best team in the world because they have such a strong academy and such a growing academy. As Manchester City, a lot of their players are starting to get on now. Fernandinho's starting to get on, of course. Company's left. And yeah, but I just think that Manchester City's squad, in my opinion, is just too deep and too strong. And I feel like they have to win the Premier League. Although I could be proven wrong, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below. Who do you think is going to win the Premier League? What predictions do you think I did wrong? Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Leave me all of your predictions, and all that stuff as well. I'm not afraid for you guys to roast me in the comments, but just don't instantly hit the dislike button because you disagree with who I've put, like your team, if you think they deserve to be higher up and I put them there. It's a prediction, guys. What am I? I don't have a crystal ball, okay? I can't just instantly predict that Sheffield United are going to win the league because the world's not like that. Nevertheless, though, guys, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and if you have got through all of this, then it would be appreciated if you could like and subscribe if you are new around here. I have a lot of FIFA content as well as football content itself planned for the channel, and plenty of other stuff as well for you guys to enjoy. We're a really versatile channel here. I like to mix it up a lot, so I'm guaranteed that any of you watching this, there's going to be something on the channel that you will enjoy. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn those post notifications on because YouTube are crazy about that. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.
Viens chez moi, je t'ai invité. Dans ma vie, tu es impliqué. Je veux qu'on soit comme Shakira et Piqué. Tes yeux, je ne veux pas te quitter. Les filles défilent pendant la fashion week et le week-end, je t'effraie le shit à Bali. Pas de baliverne dans la valise. Nonchalant pour la fabrique sans de mise. Pas de dérapage sur le circuit. Ton gâteau de l'espace et les circuits. T'as des sur qui, moi je suis sur qui, même sur kiff comme sur passe, bébé. T'as soif donc prends un fusil. Ouais, je ne prends un fusil. Foot sur fusil.